Ready?
That's so loud, I'm sorry.
I call the meeting to order. American Federation of State County and Municipal Employees, Local 1124 negotiations meeting, May 6th, 2025, at the time and place is advertised. And for our business is citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments today? Okay. We'll move on to our active agenda. A, American Federation of State County and Municipal Employees, Local 1124 collective bargaining agreement negotiations. And Cynthia, I'm gonna just turn it right over to you. We talked about what to expect at our next meeting. We worked on a red line version. I presume everybody has a copy of that.
Yeah, yep, I sent it, late Friday. I didn't really know what would be the best approach for today. Do you guys wanna let us know where you wanna start? We have a couple that are highlighted that we just wanna talk about. So I don't know if you guys would prefer to start from the beginning and move our way in, or how you guys would like to do
Yeah,
that.
we just want to start at the beginning and
Okay.
can kind of explain everything, and then as we have questions, we can ask those.
Sure, so some of these you can see are just really like grammatical or like changing small case view to upcase view. But we can talk about the first highlight. So the language that says employers shall deduct once each month all union dues and fees uniformly levied and shall continue to do so for such time and on conditions set forth in the authorization for payroll deduction, regardless of the employee's continued membership in the union. We didn't know what that last sentence meant. Is that saying like whether they're in the union or out? Well, like we could just consider them all in the union. It's just a matter of paying dues or not paying dues.
So I believe what that would mean, and of course this was language created by our attorney, our dues payroll, our dues card is like a two-part. You can be a dues paying member in good standing, and then the payroll deduction is a separate process on how to cancel that. So I believe that's what that's referring to, is if you're a member in good standing with the union or not. The dues deduction stands until you fulfill that requirement of the card to cancel it.
So you can be a person in continued membership with the union, but not have payroll deductions.
No, you
Okay.
can be a member not in good standing, but still have payroll deductions.
Okay. Okay. We
So
just didn't know if
that's
that,
totally foreign to me. I remember we kind of hashed this out last
Yeah.
time, and that was a new rule.
I guess part of the question is like, do we need that in there? Does it make sense to keep it in there? Because we didn't really know. It makes it sound like you continue the payroll deduction, but we don't know if the employee is a continued member in the union or not. We don't have anything to do with that, so.
Yeah, I will have to
We just.
Can I just say this?
Mhm.
So I remember talking about this in the last negotiation,
Yeah.
and it was quite confusing. I think it was a new thing for the union at the
Yeah, 'cause-
time. So I've
It was
had,
after Janice for what, the Supreme Court stuff is where all this language
Okay.
came from.
Yeah, because I remember we modified this part of it. Because we added that C2 Everett and the payroll.
yeah, but it was never very clear to me.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Okay, but I can say in the last 3 years, either retirees or people being promoted to management, all I've ever done is just given my formal letter to payroll, and they stopped deductions. And I've not gotten anything negative from the union on that. The employee just stops having the deductions taken
That
out.
was probably off the old card. So our dues card, the language on them says there's a certain time frame once a year to stop dues. So I
Yeah.
believe that's what that's referring to, but I could have our attorney look at this and see, maybe we could change it to whether the employee's a member in good standing or not.
Yeah, whatever makes sense. We just, it's like reading it, was kind of like, well, what does that mean for us? Like, understanding the continued payroll deduction.
So basically, it's the main office's view on that is that you don't stop dues until you receive official communication from the Everett office, the main office.
Okay, so that would make sense with the next highlighted part where it's like whether an employee is a union member or not. Which we had questions about that line too, but that kind of mimics the one up above, so if that's what it means. The employer shall continue to deduct and remit union dues and fees to the union until such time as the union notifies the employer that the dues authorization has been properly terminated. So we had a situation here recently where the employee just reached out to payroll. But really what they should be doing
Contacting the
is
main office.
contacting the main office, not necessarily Ryan or
No,
you.
the main office, if we want it in writing to the main office, but it
Okay.
can be via email.
And that was a unique situation.
Okay.
Somebody had given me their card before they went off probation.
Okay, because that was our other question is like, I guess I always thought in my mind, and I thought it said it in here, that you couldn't start deductions until after probation, but when we deep dived in here, it doesn't say that anywhere. So they can
It-
start whenever they,
They could
Whenever
start
For
their
instance, I
first
started
day.
a month after I started,
okay,
but I didn't know any better and nobody told me any better that the city can still just kick me down the road for 6 months.
And so in the past,
Because it
and,
doesn't say
and,
that.
and, and my
you do
deal,
it.
my take on that there was, we've always told them, the new people, we don't want to take your money until we are able to actually do something for you, which is after your 6 months, probation.
That's a
Oh.
scenario we were just in.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Somebody just signed up to it.
And, yeah, go ahead.
A person's able to sign up their first day, but it is, especially I think on this side of the state, this area, because I have it with a lot of my locals, is the employees they wait till their probationary period is over to officially join, but they could join day one
Okay,
or whenever they want.
yeah, like I said, in my mind, it was like, well, they don't start till after 6 months, but then we were looking in here and it's like, well, it doesn't say that. So they could essentially join whenever they wanted. Some of this are just edits, like things that we wanted removed. I don't know if there's specific questions, like as we move on, I don't know if there's specific questions about any lines that have been redlined. Moving to Article 2, we did just cut out some of the positions that are no longer positions within the city.
So they've been eliminated.
Yeah, like for example, stormwater rapid assessment is no longer temporary, so we cross out temporary. We don't have asset management technicians anymore. Or a cross connection specialist.
Were those like merged into different or reclassified or?
Yeah, like the cross connection specialist worked on like backflows and water distribution, but then there was a lead and copper concern, and so they hired Justin, which was a different position, which managed backflows, but then also did this lead and copper stuff.
So Justin wouldn't be eligible for the union then, since that's still kind of,
The duties aren't the same. I mean, he's now managing this program. I don't know.
He doesn't manage people.
yeah.
No,
Doesn't evaluate.
no, he's like a coordinator,
Yeah, he
kind
doesn't
of.
evaluate anybody.
I don't know if eventually, I don't know what the plans are for him future forward. It was a new thing that came about pretty quickly, actually.
So much like Morgan's situation 3 years ago, because we've kind of talked to Justin and he's interested in being union qualified. And I said, well, you're single in your position. I said, and the closest I could come up with was the comparison with Morgan, her position. I said, if you want to join, you don't supervise anybody. You don't evaluate anybody's performance. You have nobody underneath you. You manage a program, but not people. And if you want to join, much like Morgan, that's 100% of that department. So
So is the union asking us if we would allow that into the contract, that position?
I think we are.
Okay.
I think we are.
And what was the position name?
Lead and copper.
Oh my
No,
god,
the
something
water-
water quality compliance coordinator.
Yeah.
And he is the backflow
Guy.
guy. I mean,
Yeah.
him and Brian. They're the two black backflow guys we have. Nobody supervises anybody else, so.
Okay, so that's up for city's consideration.
Can you back up for the asset management technician? That one did that get kind of restructured or is that just gone?
I got-
never had that position.
No, we did.
Did we?
Yeah.
I thought it
was
was
part of,
restructured into GIS.
it was part of GIS and GIS restructured their positions.
And now they don't have asset management. They
Like,
have
did Angela start in that position or was it?
No, that was
somebody
Garrett
else?
Webb.
Garrett Webb, and now he's
Now
a
he's a senior analyst.
senior analyst.
And then I guess the next one, the environmental program assistant.
That was Morgan.
Oh, okay.
And now Morgan is
Been retitled.
retired.
Okay. Is your retitled in here then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
one right above.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Any other questions about positions or anything? Yeah.
Brian's been gonna have a chance to talk to him. So, my understanding is parks limited to union positions and made, supervisors or management.
Mhm.
So that would be two positions that were lost then, correct?
Yeah.
Are they not being
Park
filled?
maintenance technician, they were internal. Oh, we took two positions and made them supervisors.
But are the positions they came from being refilled?
I don't think they were union positions to begin with.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It was park maintenance technician, which, okay, I'm glad it says it in here. For a long time, they were referred to as facility maintenance techs, all of them. I thought that was so strange, but. Any other questions about positions? Okay. Management rights, it looks like there's just been some editing as far as removing bargaining unit and then exclusive prerogatives, functions, and
They mostly just like condensing language.
there's, how many questions are going to move on to Article 4? Okay. Strikes and lockouts. There was a question on what a management grievance was because it's not referred to anywhere in here. So I just modified it to say a grievance by management. If I'm not understanding that correctly, then
Yeah, just basically you have the right to file a grievance on us
yeah.
for not following the contract.
Okay, so my edit was just to try to clarify that since we weren't entirely sure what management grievance.
So that's
Refer
okay.
to.
We
Read
can-
okay, you will.
So Article 5, city's personnel policy, there's been quite a bit of change here.
Not back up, sorry.
Yeah.
So, the correction here, failure of the union to comply with the above provisions, of the city's initiation shall be subject to a grievance by management. Okay? Why are we taking out including arbitration? I mean, what is the final straw if we have a grievance?
So if you go later down to the grievance portion, we've asked to remove arbitration mediation and allow the mayor's decision to be final.
Keep going, say.
It's in a different article.
Yeah,
it's in the
it just
yeah.
makes it in line with the other per changes.
Oh,
Mhm.
thank you.
Which I think is the next article.
No, personal policy.
Personnel policy, Article 5 is the next one.
I agree with that.
Oh, but, oh, okay, yeah, grievances and,
Article 5 is just a paragraph.
yeah.
Yeah. I think in this section, you guys wanted a 30-day notice, is that right?
Correct. Prior to the implementation.
I'm wondering where we can put that in. So right now we have as soon as practical. Our team will want to discuss whether 30 days is.
In kind of the middle paragraph of article.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
a
okay,
sentence that
thank you.
says, in the event the city proposes to change or does change the personnel policy, the city will notify the union of such changes. And we have as soon as practical, but I think you guys were proposing 30 days.
Yes.
So we'll want to make sure that we talk about that with our group.
I don't think time frame is so important. More that we're aware of it before it goes to council for final approval.
Okay.
So if that's somewhere within a 30-day period, if that's what you guys consider practical. If it's a 3-month process and we get it in month 2, that's
I mean, the intent is so that you guys then have time to provide public comment, which I assume is your intent as well.
correct.
Right.
Right, I'm just thinking through like, because obviously I'm the one that presents the personnel policy changes. And so I'm just thinking through that, yes, we have notice on what day it will be, but sometimes we're editing it right up to, and then I would send it to you guys before council. So, 30 days would just probably prolong the approval, to go in front of council. But we can talk about it with our group and see. It sounds like you might be a little bit lenient on the 30 days. Just as long as you have enough time to review
Some
it.
reaction time.
Yeah, okay.
24 hours before or the day before is.
Oh,
push it.
Can we
Yeah,
get a
that's-
little more?
Yeah, that's a little rough. We've got
Yes, that's
so much else going on.
Yeah, we have to have it done a week ahead of time.
Cause it has to be, that's what I was gonna say, it has to be on the agenda, so it just seems like maybe when it's put on the agenda, it could just be sent to the union.
I would think that's, because I mean, obviously, if it's on the agenda and they're gonna be voting on it, they have it in hand if they're reading it or have read it. So,
And yeah, agendas go out.
One week.
Yeah,
so maybe when it's presented to them, this is what,
at the same time it's provided to you.
I think that'd be fair.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, we
plus-
could probably work on that language.
It's like, we're trying to get more clarity, I think, and everything, it seemed like, and by, the way that's worded to me, that's perception of what somebody thinks is
Sure.
practical. Yeah, I might think that 5 days is practical, you might think 24 hours is practical.
Mhm.
That's, it's just in trying to, because some of this is like misunderstanding of, or two different.
Perceptions of
Thank
the
you.
same thing, yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that, with our group and come back. I mean, it kind of sounds like we're open to it. We did add the pursuant to the personnel policy, all employees shall be at will, but shall be disciplined for cause. That was at city council direction.
We elaborate on that, please.
City council direction, or that's language.
I know it's the council director. I want to know, please read that again.
So
Sorry.
pursuant to the personnel policy, all employees shall be at will. So technically, your employment with the city is at will. But we discipline for cause. So like, generally you would use a progressive discipline.
Okay. We're talking verbal, written.
Verbal, record of discussion, official reprimand, suspension, depending on how,
The severity.
egregious.
No, we get that, we get it. Go, shove drunk and put somebody on a sidewalk, we get it. You aren't gonna get a verbal.
Right, yeah. So, and then the discipline would be, just like basically what the personnel policy reaches.
You understand on the side of the table that at will,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure we've all worked for at will,
Mhm.
hey, I don't like you anymore, you're out.
Well,
That's what we hear. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just our take.
I was gonna ask Jennifer, does Idaho state, their state law, you were talking about it at the work session. Does the Idaho state law like list how it's supposed to be done through Idaho state law?
It's not necessarily a question of state law, it's more federal law that
Uh-huh.
this would fall under, so, generally speaking, Idaho's an at-will state, which
Right.
means you can fire for any reason, but government employment in general, as classified by the Supreme Court, is considered a property right, so there's a procedural due process aspect, so notice and opportunity, notice of the reason for the termination and the opportunity to speak against it. And so we still follow that process. And so we can't just, terminate for the sake of termination. We still have to have a reason for the termination. It could be a reduction in force, it could be, for disciplinary reasons or something to that effect. The notice aspect can mean a variety of different things. There's not a specific process that's identified, but depending on the severity of the incident, could be given notice that you need to, that you could be put on paid administrative leave immediately pending an investigation or something to that effect. So it's not very well defined. But the argument from the employee side would be not sufficient notice, not sufficient opportunity to respond. But that's the process that we still have to follow, even at will, because it's a separate claim, because it's government employment.
Okay, I have a question on that there. Okay, what happens, say that process is not handled? What is the, repercussions, I guess, would be,
Recourse.
or recourse, on your part as
Um,
government.
well, I mean, if you're claiming that the government didn't follow, or the city didn't follow that process, then you would have a claim against the city that you could talk to an attorney about, or talk to your union about, considering, you know, what you felt like was a wrongful process.
So. And you said it, that's why it's stuck with me, but. So we're at will. Again, that at will for us is like, well, you know, but you just explained it.
It's like at will with an asterisk.
Okay, there's gotta be a reason. So that sounds to me like for cause. You did this, therefore that's the cause for your termination. So is that just a legal speak at that point?
Yes and no, because at will, you know, there's still the aspect of, you don't have to have a reason, but because this is still government employment, you still have to give them notice and opportunity to, speak against it. So, you know, whether, you know, what that notice and opportunity is, it's very fact dependent on the reason for it, because not all terminations are for disciplinary reasons.
Correct.
And there could be other situations. What exactly, I don't know off the top of my head, other than, you know, maybe a supervisor is having, you know, conflicts with an employee who's not willing to follow the rules, or, you know, something to that effect. While that could be for cause for disciplinary processes, because of at will, maybe you don't have to follow that progressive disciplinary process for the employee to be, you know, asked to leave and get terminated that way. Then they would have, you know, get the notice of why they're being terminated, and then the opportunity to, you know, speak about why they shouldn't be terminated at that point.
So in that scenario, if you one strike, you're done.
Yes. But there's a lot of different ways that that works other than just disciplinary reasons. So I know that's primarily the concern, but with government employment, there's still protections in place even for at-will employees, which is a process that the city's still following for, since it's implemented its at-will process.
Okay, can I ask, and I don't know if you can answer because this is directed from the council, but why is this being pushed versus the way it's been? Why is this all of a sudden back or a deal being pushed, you know, in the contract to go to at will?
It was something that council, yes,
Go ahead.
okay, it's something that council decided to do with our personnel policy last year, is to change it to at will. They wanted that ability and language in there. And so this is just an extension of that change.
Do we know, I mean, are you up familiar with why that was a specific change they wanted? Was there some kind of roadblock that was a problem? Or?
I don't remember how it came to be. Remember it all?
I know that there was a council member that was their big push
Mm-hmm,
to have it changed for cause to at will.
yeah.
And they had pushed it a couple of times, and there was a lot of discussions about it, and that when they ultimately decided it, one of the things that was pointed out to them was that our union contracts are still for cause, and that was something that they wanted changed in the union contracts as well. And it was mentioned at that time too.
About that, or we went to Article 6? So, yeah, there was quite a bit of editing with Article 6 grievance procedure. A little bit of clarification to the definition. And then, we requested to strike the mediator arbitration component of it. And that it's binding. and removed the discharge section. Since it specifically said a cause.
I have one question. You said in here on the first sentence, it says that the grievance is between the employees and the city, not between the union and the city.
So that's saying if an employee, so an employee needs to take to have the grievance, not,
What if it's a grievance that affects a whole department of employees? Like, not that this is happening, but say the city refused to pay standby pay or on call. And it affected a group of employees. You want an individual grievance for each employee or for the issue?
Jennifer, was that the idea? Is that the grievance needs to be by the employee, not by the union specifically as a group?
Yes, that would be the intent, because the grievance procedure's supposed to be related to the employee-employer relationship and not the relationship between the non-employee union and the city. But if it's, I mean,
Like a class action type of grievance, and so how would that be
it would still be
addressed?
based off of those employees, because it would be difficult for, if you're saying that if it's standby pay and not all members of the union receive standby pay, for you to bring an action on behalf of all the employees of the union. Instead, you would have those employees that are affected bring the grievance under their name, and then you would represent their interests or something to that effect on their behalf. But it wouldn't be the union making the claim.
I don't want to move this too fast if you guys have questions or want to have conversation about this section.
If you have any more questions on it.
So then Article 7, hiring release. Looks like our edit was made specifically to section 2. I removed the component of the 6-month introductory period. Since there's a modification to at will. Then there would be an introductory period. Which is small.
I'm just. Oh, okay. Thank you.
We jumped in, I was, no,
Yeah,
there is no more probationary period.
yeah, I mean, since it's an at will, you don't have that introductory period that would otherwise be considered kind of at will.
So our previous discussion about not signing up for the union until you're past your probation.
Really doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any additional questions about those changes? And then union security. You guys had a change to this section, can't you?
I think it was a part about,
I think it was just under the hiring that, instead of just the union president getting the list, that then it would also be forwarded to me too. That same information that's sent for like the reports. For when new hires are hired.
Oh,
But it-
black and white copy.
Yeah, it's, what is like that? Was it Article 9?
I don't have any changes in Article 9.
Yeah,
They don't
you
give
did.
us-
No, I think it was back under Article 7,
Oh.
but that might, I don't think there was anything,
union
I just know under,
union-
Oh, it said, steward and staff representative.
yes,
Representative.
yes. Cause the green is the new one, this one, right?
Yeah, anything that's like brown.
Any color.
It's not
But the same color. All of our edits are in different colors.
Oh,
Yeah,
Very pretty, I don't know.
I tried to make it so it was all the same color when working through it, so.
I don't know, that's when I do track changes now, instead of redlining it out, it says deleted and what was deleted over on the side. I'm
Yeah.
like, how did that get changed?
Yeah.
So what did you guys want to change about that?
Basically, I went in there and Article 7 was one of them, so when the unions provided a list, that it's also provided to the staff representative, that's. So like, I think Chris gets the notice of the new hires, one of you
Ryan,
do.
well, I think Ryan did. No, I don't think that's right.
I mean, we
Ryan
don't-
does.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Right now, we don't. but-
No, we don't.
Okay.
Is that something you guys are asking to have included?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Cause I don't see anything in Article 7 of your changes.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, which one, is that under Article 7?
Yeah, Article
Okay.
7, Section 1. That's where that's about.
Yeah, so section 1,
Oh,
the
you
city
mean
shall
eligible.
send a report to the
Quarterly basis.
steward, so I'd have put in staff representative.
Okay.
Which is you.
Yes.
Have we done that before?
Not
We've never
myself.
gotten a list of new,
The steward didn't?
I remember sending it to Chris.
the union.
I used to when I was president, all I got was a updated list of paying members.
We do
Was
get a
the
list of
list designed?
paying members every
But
month.
we
That
never
is
got
true.
anything
We don't
back.
have a list of eligibles, which we talked about that.
Well, I think we
Not
talked
big
about this
deal.
last time and it was more just like, yeah, we have this language in here, but anytime you want a list, like, just ask, like, we'll provide.
The only
it
list
to you
I would be
anytime.
concerned with is if we have new hires. I mean, we don't always get
Okay.
out to parks, or we don't always get to streets.
Mhm.
Okay.
Pat's at streets, so he'll let us know, but we don't
We
always
just want a
know if they're
notification of a new.
Yes.
Okay, so
eligible,
maybe change the
a
wording.
union eligible position.
So when we hire up, it's someone in.
That would, I think, Laura, that would
Yeah,
satisfy
Just
me.
notice that, yeah, cause you don't necessarily get out of the.
Correct, yeah, we're kind of in a hole.
But I think we're gonna be careful about, taking on the responsibility of mailing this to Laura
Email is fine.
or email even, right? Are we doing that anywhere else? I want to be sensitive to
no.
that because of the other things we've talked about, you know.
I mean, is it possible that we just provide it to you and you forward it on to
We should be able to
whoever the
provide that to
council
the union
needs to
president
know?
or steward, then you can.
Sure,
forward it
I can do
to us,
that.
yeah.
So we can just provide you guys with this is quarterly. You wanna stick to quarterly? Or
No, it's
just,
So I'm,
anytime there's
if
a
it's
new
an
hire?
email, it's just adding my name to the email though.
I think he's just saying consistency with our other union groups and
Oh.
they're more responsible for coordinating with their union representatives than we are.
But then in a small way, I mean, it's a small thing, it's a small aspect, right? But let's say that your email changes or something else, you know, it's just, we have a relationship, the connection to the union steward here, we know where you're at, we can find you easy, that's where it is. And if something changes, then you could update them and they could look right there. So, and we have examples of that, so this is where it gets kind of hard, to send information that's out.
I apologize, I have to go to get to the doctors. Oh. Good luck. Yeah.
Let me just jump in too. We're scheduled for an hour today. I have a meeting with the county commissioners at 1:30, so I do have to leave by then, but
So we can come up with some language maybe for this section 1 and just let you guys know, like, ask you if it's okay. Talk about whether it's just every time there's a new hire, we notify you guys and then you want to list on a quarterly basis, we just need to make it part of the process, you know?
Well, I mean, you know how it is,
Yeah.
we read about the new
Mm-hmm.
police officer or the new dispatcher, but we don't always read about the new streets labor or the new park labor, you know. we don't-
That's not intentional, I hope you didn't.
I'm not, that's not my business and I don't care, but I don't know that we've hired a new street labor. That's all I'm
We did
saying.
put it on our monthly report.
Right.
Works used to send out new employee announcements.
Yeah, they used to do that, Jill and Haley.
Well, they do.
Do they?
For
I haven't
for
seen
many
one.
positions, but not all.
Oh, I haven't seen one in
Yeah, I
a
haven't
long
seen
time,
one in
but
a
maybe you
while.
guys haven't had a new
Who
one.
was sending that out?
Public Works used to send out like new hire announcement and I just haven't seen one in a while. Maybe you guys
I
have.
think I saw for our, for a wastewater position in the last
It's a
6 or 8
department level
months.
decision.
Probably,
It was
yeah.
sent out.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it there.
No, that's exactly what I had in my brain. I'm like, I just met 4 guys over at collections. I didn't even know who they were. I'm like, oh, hey guys, how long you been here? 4 months. I was like,
That would probably be good for our city though, too, because quite honestly, I wanna know, if we have a
absolutely.
new employee.
Yeah, we put all of our
I
new
haven't
hires
been
on
very
our
good
monthly
about sending out
report.
new hire stuff either.
Yeah.
Like I used to send them out every time we had a new hire in our department.
Yeah.
I don't think I did the last few
So we can
times.
take a look. So there used to be pictures of the person and
I
like
know.
little brief where they came from, what they did.
I just did that.
Yeah, you did.
That way people don't get suspicious when I have someone follow me around.
We'll have to talk about that next round. Okay, Article 8, union security, so just a couple edits. Article 9, seniority. We added this sentence, I don't know if it makes sense for you guys, but we were curious about seniority, like how that worked. Because it's mentioned in here, an employee who separates from employment and is subsequently rehired shall have their seniority calculated from the date of their most recent rehire. Is that how internally you guys do that, or?
Well, there's a,
I-
somebody, did somebody quit or did somebody get laid off and brought back? 'Cause I think that's 2 completely separate.
I think in this case it was,
It's not rehire, it's a rehire, it's not an internal transfer or anything like that. It's just a rehire, say if they left the city and came back.
yeah, and really, I mean, this is, if this isn't how it is, then let's modify it. I think it was just a question of the seniority, how that works, if somebody leaves and comes back, like, I think that Travis Mann left and came back, right?
Yeah, so
How
that
would
guy
his
to me, you
seniority
would start over because he chose to leave.
Right,
Yeah, and so that's what this says, you know,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
your most recent rehire.
Because they, like they left, got all their vacation back, all their sick pay, they left on the table, whatever, so.
Yeah.
right, but if somebody's laid off
Yeah.
and then they're rehired 6 months later, or, I mean, I know it doesn't happen very often. I mean,
Yeah, well,
I've seen it happen, but it doesn't happen very often.
Or like if they, well, they have quit, if they're leave for say like National Guard or something like that,
Mhm.
that's not leaving.
no,
That's
they're on
just,
military
just
leave.
on
Yeah,
military
that's
leave,
military.
so that doesn't change
Yeah,
it.
there's still.
Okay, all right.
But if they are laid,
It's not a termination.
Yeah.
if they are laid off and they're brought back, by chance, you get somebody who's got,
We might have it in the layoff section. I don't know
Oh,
if we do or not, but
I know in the personnel policy, you have to leave in good standing to even be eligible for rehire.
yeah.
right,
So you can't have been like fired.
but if you're laid off and you're available to come back, when the city asks you to come back, and you were a good employee and circumstances made you get laid off, do you come back? As though you had 8 years with the city before you were laid off, or do you come back as a brand new hire starting at?
No, I think you'd come back with your years.
That's great, I think we can
Wasn't your elected
differentiate that, right?
position. So do you want another sentence there that says
Yeah, for layoff.
Layoff?
If an employee's
There-
laid
there
off
might
and
be-
recalled.
if you move on Article 9, Section 7B, layoffs by city provided by employees, leaves a permanent, I've just started reading into that section, that might have something in it.
Well, there's,
Senior.
I don't know what the article is, because I just, Article 9, Section 6 does talk about layoffs and seniority. It says department seniority shall apply in case of layoffs, rehiring and advancement. So it kind of seems like your seniority is still applicable regardless of the reason.
Is there a
Because it
difference?
says layoffs, rehiring, so
Yeah, but that's 2 different things.
I know, that's what
I
I'm saying,
quit
that's.
and you come
I
back.
know,
and-
and that's what I'm saying, it seems like, based off the language here,
Right.
your seniority rules would apply in both scenarios, whether someone was laid off, or they chose to resign and then they came back. So I think what Nikki's saying is like, what's your guys' practice, and we can make certain that language complements the
Like,
practice.
is that how you guys are viewing it? If you're laid off or you're rehired, you left and came back, if you're transferred from department to department or you're promoted,
We'll have to caucus on that,
Yeah,
because
because-
to me, that's two completely different.
Right.
Okay, so you wanna kind of separate them out.
But to me, what if you did say you transferred from, say, the water plant to the wastewater plant? Should you have seniority over all those guys who've been at the wastewater plant? Even though
Well,
you.
is there
There should be a
seniority for the
section.
department
Shall not
or
be less than
seniority
employee
for
transfer
vacation?
to one person.
Oh, okay.
So in
But
in section
so you would have
seven,
seniority
that
over,
was-
say, people that you just.
Right, so if I came over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I think the issue is are we talking about seniority for vacation accruals or seniority in the department for like the list of on-call or who
Well,
gets
that's
called
really
out
the question
first?
that I had, is like, what does
Or
the
layoff.
seniority, because is that where it only applies, is layoff?
Why
Or
is
do you-
saying,
Or do you guys have seniority within your own? Like, does it
What do you
matter?
guys use seniority for?
Yeah, does it,
well, how much for
Vacation
layoffs
request?
or, right, layoffs?
Yeah,
Vacation.
staff reduction,
What about during
obviously,
winter shifts, like who gets the
vacations,
overtime?
um,
Is there?
I don't think seniority really causes anybody to butt heads, until it does,
I-
obviously.
I-
Hey, vacation, you want vacation, well, I've been here long.
Actually,
that's criticized, because that's what I was
in
curious
our
about.
city, we basically.
The guy with 10 years at the water plant,
Kids.
he more nice seniority over the guys that, with
Work
5
that
years
way,
at
but yes,
wastewater,
it
right?
would be
Well, then they lay off, so
You want-
they're not gonna lay off the guy that just started in the water plant, they're gonna lay off the guy that just bought it.
Maybe that'd be something that.
So they would maintain their years, basically their years of service, even
Yeah,
at a
read it
different
the way it is
department.
now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would say, I don't think it
You'll have
happens,
to
but
talk
I
about
think
it.
it can get sticky if. you're-
Well, yeah, I mean, really, the seniority is kind of like an internal thing, so maybe you guys
Yeah, we'll talk
talk
about
amongst
it.
yourselves and decide, you know,
We
what
can come up with some
language.
standard language.
Okay.
Well, I see that now, layoff in excess of 12 months. So if you're laid off for longer than 12 months, you don't get it.
Well, in section 4 is effective of introductory period, no regular employee shall acquire any seniority rights until has been employed by the city for 6 months. When we removed that introductory period, does section 4 get removed, or do you guys want to take a look at that section 2?
We start earning seniority rates from day one,
Mhm.
which would tell me what's the job with no probationary period, then yeah, I think section 4 needs to be. gone.
Removed, okay.
Because
Do you agree
if
with
that
that?
was the case, you could be a union member at day one too.
Right. That's why I say, yeah, that kind of solved that problem.
Yeah, I think we need to do a little research
Yeah.
on it though, and what the difference between,
Yeah,
because you can have two different seniorities, you know,
Mhm.
one for your vacation accruals from when you first initially
Oh,
started
yeah,
here
yeah.
versus I'm now in roads and I want to take vacation, but I just transferred here, so I don't have the seniority for that.
Correct. But that section 4 just talks about earning no seniority rights until your probationary period.
Yeah.
Finished, but we don't have, they're proposing, we don't have a probationary period. So you start building seniority from day one. Okay, we'll get that clear.
Yeah, you guys can talk about it, let me know, I'll just make a note of it, and then,
Good.
you know, look at that whole article, really,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, maybe they should revise Article 9
yeah.
and present it to.
Okay, I think everything else is just kind of little edits, and then, Article 10, investigation by union representative, we highlighted section 2, because that's where you wanted to add.
Separate.
Yeah, so I don't know that we really, we just talk about it, because our group hasn't really talked about it in full, but I just wanted to highlight it so we don't lose it. So,
Can I, can I talk about that?
sure.
So the term, I think it's a legal term, I'm sure it is, but the term stewards. I don't know if we really have any stewards. With that
I
title.
wondered about that too.
You know, like is Pat the steward? I consider him the shop steward. If the street department's problem, go to Pat. But he's also an e-board member, and we try to make our e-board pretty spread throughout the city. But we don't have enough members or not a big enough work group
Mhm.
to have like a shop steward at wastewater. You know, most people are, 90% of the time, people are calling themselves or Chris is at the same phone I'm at when I'm not there. So
You want to refer to your guys' health in like a different way?
Keyboard,
Yeah, just propose what
yeah,
you'd want
I
to
would say
replace
keyboard,
steward
just
with.
because I would hate to see that somebody say, we didn't go to a shop steward. But I've had people ask me, who are your shop stewards? And I'm like, we don't really
It's
have it.
not the issue,
I
it's
just
just
made the
yours.
assumption that you guys were the stewards because
So did I.
you're the union
Well,
rep.
because we were like, what is a steward?
Yeah. Yeah, we were just.
Is that a legal term?
It is, but in most cases, usually the officers act as stewards, cause you can't get people
Okay,
to volunteer.
then that's
for
fine.
those
And,
positions.
an executive board officer, I think would serve like.
And in the, just, I mean, for ease, in the preamble, we can add a phrase or a sentence that says, the e-board or the
Who's
officers
a steward?
shall be referred herein as stewards or something to that
That's
effect. Just let us know what you want those to be and we can incorporate it and use it as a defined term throughout the rest. That way, we don't have to change it and we can just, it's a defined term. That's why it's capitalized to begin with. Anything that's capitalized that's otherwise a general word is usually, it's defined somewhere else here if you need something specific.
Yeah, and Lee and I were kind of talking about the word staff representative. Like if we weren't here and we're all gone, would somebody know that you're the staff representative or a staff representative? So I don't know if we want to refer to like union representative or council two
But I
representative.
told her, I call her, you're a union rep.
Well, I've heard it so many
If
different
she was
things.
driving home one day and something, God forbid, happened.
I hit a
you
pheasant
would-
the other
You
day.
would still have a staff representative, it just wouldn't be her.
Wouldn't be me. Somebody
So-
else would
Okay,
come
so
in
just-
from.
So staff representative, okay.
And again, we can add something in the preamble.
Yeah,
or
that's a
something
word.
that identifies the staff representative as being the individual employed by AFSCME to represent council two or something to that effect.
We might need to line out that last sentence, the number of shop stewards cannot exceed 4. The number of stewards, because we have more than 4 e-board members positions.
So just include that with your proposed revisions.
And I don't even know whether it's in there.
Or can I ask a clarifying question? Sure. Not about necessarily this, but WCCCE, are they like the parent company to Council Two, which represents AFSCME?
So our official name is Washington State Council of City and County Employees, Council Two,
Okay,
which we are part of AFSCME as our international union.
okay. I just, because we mailed the check to WSCCE, it comes from Council Two, but it's AFSCME union, so I just was curious.
I
I'm
get
sorry.
called the AFSCME rep, or
Yeah.
I've heard them all.
Well, we should define that in here too. I mean, it just says hereafter union, but we can.
I don't say, I thought it
It's in
was
the second line, first and second.
the Washington State Council of City. Yeah.
We ready to move on to Article 11? I'm probably gonna have a significant conversation here, so. Section 1 just really has minor edits, and then we get to overtime. We were actually having conversation about this prior to this meeting on overtime versus call out. We've defined it in such a way in here, but I think it probably would help to have some conversation about, is call out overtime, or is it a separate pay at paid time and a half, or do you only earn call out after you've worked 40 hours? So I think this will
So
be,
it should be separate. It should be, a call out is a call out, so that's overtime. It's not whether it's 40 hours or not.
Is
It's
that
always been, is it, yeah.
call out included in the overtime calculation for overtime hours?
that's
Yeah,
the
Well, that's
conversation.
a conversation.
I don't know how
Yeah.
it's billed, but it should be paid at
So
time and a half.
what if
Paid the
comes,
same.
Huh?
It's paid the same.
At
but
time and a half.
Yeah, but we talked about tracking that differently, I think.
Well, I mean, I think, Nikki and I were
kind of talked in circles around this, and it was a bad timing because I was on my way out, but we were like, it's different now, right? Like, you have your current contract, which the overtime language is different than potentially the new contract. So in the situation, currently, anytime you're working call out, you're in overtime status.
Right,
You're, because you don't have to, you're always gonna have hours to fill the 40, whether it's vacations.
right.
And so we were just discussing, like, do we need to, take a look at how we define call out in here? Like, should there be a call out rate? That's different than your regularly hourly rate, so that you're getting some kind of a premium pay for being called out before you hit your 40 hour work. Does that make sense?
So I think,
Well, premium.
It's like you could have-
It is already a premium pay. Let's not call it overtime. It just happens to be the same rate as overtime.
Mhm.
It's a premium
Well,
pay.
then the conversation we had right now, your call out rate is technically your overtime rate, right? It's
Right.
1.5 times your regular
Yeah,
rate.
sure.
So that's now would now potentially be your call out rate.
Right.
So now, say you've hit 40 hours work, so say maybe you work your standard 40. And Monday through Thursday, and you get called out on a Friday. So now you're working potentially like, say, 42, 44 hours. So those 2 to 4 additional call out hours, if your call out rate is 1.5 times
Mhm.
your regular rate,
Mhm.
is your call out OT rate now 1.5 times your call out rate?
Okay, yeah.
That's
Let's
a
not-
conversation-
Let's not overthink it.
Nikki and I were having, that now that your overtime rules are different,
Right.
do we look at your call out rate as that's now a rate of pay? And typically when overtime kicks in, all your rate of pay has become 1.5 times.
Right, but see, not everybody makes the same, so my call out time and a half is different than say like Billy's time and a half. Or say if somebody newer, their time and a half is different than my time, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and we want to clarify it too for the personnel policy, because you have people like Billy, Kevin, Greaser, they're now supervisors, right? But they're on the call out schedule,
Mhm.
but it may not be being looked at the same way. And so now, council's condition was that you would earn overtime after 40 hours worked. So now you're gonna go basically to the same rules, but then how do we apply that call out? Is it straight time until you hit 40 hours?
No.
Or is it, but then,
Yeah.
You
And I
look
don't
at
have
the
a-
guys
I
that
don't have an
are both of
issue
that
with-
call, that won't be on call.
yeah, and that's what we talked about, is that it's an incentive for people to be on call.
Right, it's
So-
ruining you're
Like,
taking,
Amy, I think I can, just the clarity is pretty
Yeah.
simple. I am not on call at the water plant.
Mhm.
I am not on that list, all right? Now, do I get called out? I do. It happens, but I am not on the regular rotation. Chris is. So Monday night, Chris gets called out. Anytime after normal workout. I like to say 2 in the morning, because that's when it always happens.
Mhm.
He gets called out. He earns that bonus pay, that great,
Premium pay.
not
Premium
overtime.
pay.
He's earning his time and a half call out. Okay? So I reached into my 40s on a Thursday afternoon, and we have an issue, and I have to stay over 2 hours. I'm not called out. I'm asked, hey, you need to stay here till 7 when somebody comes to relieve you, then I'm just overtime. So if Chris, being a call out guy, if he has asked to stay up to that 40 hours or after 10 hours in a day, he's getting overtime pay. Once he leaves work, then the situation turns into a call out. Regardless of his hours he's earned, that's not overtime hours he's earning, it's just a call out. Okay.
Yeah.
At least that's how we handle it right now.
well, it already states too, if you're sick, you can't be on standby. You can't, you can't be on sick pay and standby.
Right.
You have to turn your call over to somebody else, and they'll take your call, and any call out you need to get.
So you aren't getting paid standby and you cannot respond to an on call.
Okay.
So what they're
I'm
saying
trying
is
to think
like,
of some scenarios, because honestly, I'm trying to think of this as what's fair to you guys, because you could be, like, in your situation, you're saying, well, I get called back on Friday, so I get time and a half pay, which is the equivalent of
No, I didn't say called back.
overtime, held over.
Yeah,
so
held
overtime.
over. If I am called, like if there's an emergency and somebody calls me, I bill that as on call. because I did respond, I'm home, I'm done, I have no obligation to the city, but I came back. That's an on-call, I was called out.
Right.
I'm not on the list, but that's a position.
I think
So it sounds like
one of the things that I'm struggling with too is, so if you're in, so say you're working Monday through Thursday, and you get called in Monday night after you've gone home, that'd be call out, right?
Mhm,
And so say that was a 2 hours. So you had your 2 hours that you got paid at time and a half.
mhm,
And then at the end of the week, you ended up working 42 and a half hours.
mhm,
That seems on paper like it works well, because you had 42 hours. 2 of those hours were at time and a half. But let's now say like you, were technically on vacation Thursday. So again, you've got 42 hours you're being paid for, 2.5 at time and a half.
mhm.
And you just gave an example that made me think, is it fair to you if your call out was at the end of your week? But maybe it all
Well, the way
works
that we
out.
kind of talked about it is if you have call out pay as its own pay code,
Mhm.
Mhm.
anytime it's call out, regardless whether you're over 40 or under 40, you have your hours worked into overtime and you have call out. So if you get to Friday and you're at 40 and then on Saturday you're called out, it's not overtime, it's call out pay. But we're paying it at the same rate as time and a half.
So do we just look at
Your
call
health-
out separate from the 40
Yeah.
hours
Yes.
worked? It's just always gonna be 1.5 times the rate, never more, never
I
less.
think
That's
that's how we've
how-
always
Is that how we,
done it.
and then we could just
Well,
define it
always
that
been-
clearly in the,
That's kind of how Lee and I wrote it in here, was that that's how it would be
Okay.
looked at.
So like,
And then we added some sections for what if that call out's on a holiday? What if that call out is on, you know?
Okay.
so you say Ryan got held over, right? You only get, if he only stays an hour, he gets an hour. You don't get 2 hours. And that's the thing, if if we're there, if we're asked to work overtime, not get called out, then that's different for every week, so.
I just
There's no-
wanna
yeah,
make
there's no
certain that
can of-
we're,
And it does, stand by, not stand by, but, call outs on a holiday or what you paid earlier.
okay, I wanna make certain that we're like call out still, fair, that there's some incentive to be
Yeah.
involved.
I don't
And
think there's
that,
anybody in our group
and
that sees it as unfair right now.
yeah, and then I also wanna make certain it's easy to understand, even though my mind is making it overly complicated for the purpose of payroll, right? So that we don't have these like, this is a weird situation, what do we do now?
Yeah, and that kind of becomes the problem is when we have those holidays, it's like Carolyn and I and Amy, and we're like, okay, they did this and they did this, and we're looking at overtime, call out, holidays, which one applies? And so like our edits here are to just try to make it as clear as it can be for us as well about when that happens. Now, I just want to make sure that I recognize that in overtime, our changes do take out Sundays. And then we added a specific section for holidays, and basically holidays for the way that we're trying to interpret in our mind. And I'm kind of bouncing around, so I apologize. Maybe we just stick with this section for now. But,
Then you have to get to the commissioners.
should we end at this
Well, I
point?
mean, work out it, and then for hours, if you want to keep going, that's fine, but you
Finish
just
your
keep
thought.
notes and close the cut.
Have her finish your thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that you guys see that, because part of our direction was to make it more in alignment with other employee groups. And so, our police officers work on Sundays, our firefighters work on Sundays. They don't get that extra like double time pay.
We don't either.
Good.
This says Sundays you get double time.
Believe me, I worked at the water plant for
If,
over 15 years
No,
now.
this says, your contract currently says Sundays or recognized holidays shall be compensated at double times the regular rate of pay.
Only if you aren't scheduled.
For those, yeah.
That's good, yeah.
There's not very many
Right.
unscheduled employees out there who ever work Sunday. Unless they're
Well,
just part of our sector.
If I get
Yeah,
somebody
see, but that's,
on a Sunday,
that's where the part that we can't seem to figure out is it keeps trying to align everybody in the same, like the police and the fire, they're scheduled. The street department's not scheduled. You don't schedule the storms. You don't schedule the car wrecks. You don't schedule the water tank breaking. See, so how can we align all of our stuff with groups that are scheduled and know ahead of time that they will be working?
But a parks laborer might be scheduled for a Sunday. is another member of your
But
group.
they don't get over,
Well, they're not part of the streets, they're parks.
no,
Well, they might.
unless they're
I
already
would,
assigned.
I would make it
And-
find an example.
according to that.
And then every parks department, I even know this for a long time. Parks are always paid double time on Sunday. I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah,
Well,
they-
they're never scheduled. It's always been extra time.
I guess, like, what's the difference between a Sunday and a Saturday and a Friday at 2 a.m.? I mean, what makes a Sunday so specific that you get double time as if it's a holiday?
For a lot of people, Sunday is a holy day.
Mm.
Costco pays time and a half on Sunday, all
Every.
employers,
I've
most
ever worked
employers
double
do.
on Sunday. I don't
Because
know.
most people, when I say most people are either like Costco where you're just open, you gotta have a full crew, so the benefit is, okay, we'll pay you extra because you're not allowed to go worship or whatever. The other side of it is most people don't work on Sundays.
Yeah.
I mean, probably 90% of Americans just don't work on a Sunday. It's the same reason the city doesn't recognize Easter as a holiday. Costco does because they're open, not on Easter, but they recognize it. We don't have a staff on Sunday, so it's not a recognized holiday for us.
Well,
So,
I'm just saying, that's our proposal.
Okay.
And so,
Do you know
Like,
off
so
the
the
top of your
police would,
head
like-
if any departments work Sunday or schedule, other than water?
water,
Sorry.
wastewater has
Wastewater,
a person that
police and
that's
fire.
scheduled.
Oh, okay.
So like the police, like you're saying though, the police and fire, they have a beginning of the year, they know their schedules, they know what they're gonna work. I know I'm gonna, yeah, my call, I know I'm gonna be on call, but I don't know if I'm gonna get a call out on this Sunday or not, so there's no way of predetermining that. You're talking about what you're talking about.
I think that people can be called, they have callback. Fire has callback in their contract.
Right, but I'm saying, you're saying the overtime on those days, they know when they're gonna get.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we do have employee groups that are also called back on a Sunday. That
Right.
could be, and they don't get paid at double time. They get paid their
They-
overtime rate.
But you wanted to put us like their holidays where it all goes on. You guys did talk about city council, or you talked about saying, instead of getting, if I get called out on a holiday, instead of getting overtime, I'd get like a set amount at the end of the year. Well, they know they're working a holiday.
No, what I was saying was, you guys get paid at the holiday at the time, they get paid in a lump sum, it's the same, right? But they don't get, they get paid straight time and holiday pay, that's what they get.
Right?
And
But
so, like, some of these are triple, well, we're
There's no
not, we're not on holiday.
You
No,
can't-
there's,
No,
your
there's
language
not.
specifically says there are holidays where you earn triple time.
there's no triple time.
And if
Oh.
you're working on a Sunday that happens to be.
You gotta take out, you gotta do this. You gotta think of the holiday is, you're getting paid on that holiday and you're at home, right? I'm working that holiday, so we're both getting paid for a holiday. Take that all the way out. Difference is I'm
That's an
working,
equality across.
you're
Everybody
not.
gets the pay.
So the person that's working shouldn't get, they shouldn't get any less because they had to work.
No, they're not getting less.
You're saying they shouldn't, if you're working, you shouldn't get time and a half on a holiday.
I'm saying you get double time on a holiday. You get your straight time and then you get your holiday pay.
Holiday
You
pay
guys
is
view
not
it
pay.
double time
You're
and
getting paid for
holiday.
the holiday and you're not working.
Yes.
So how's
So
that
like,
double time?
when my
Saying the
staff
same
works
thing.
on a holiday, because we work holidays sometimes, they enter their
Right.
8 hours into their
Right.
regular pay line, and then they enter 8 hours into their
Correct.
holiday
But
pay.
it-
So it looks like they had 16 hours that day, which creates a double
No,
time.
it does.
And that's what you
But
guys are
not
doing,
really.
double time.
What you gotta
But
look at it
what
is
about the
this.
staff that didn't work that holiday? They still got paid a holiday pay.
Right, so they get basically,
So you're just getting paid to be at work,
they get paid 8 hours for that day,
Correct.
for not being there.
right?
Somebody who comes in on the holiday technically gets paid 16 hours.
So
So
I can
8
tell you,
times 2.
I can tell you this, I'll just use, our department is very, very simple. Chris work is scheduled Monday through Thursday. He works it, Friday's the holiday. He makes 50 hours. He didn't get paid double time for anything. He worked his 40 hours and got paid 10 hours for a holiday. I'm scheduled Tuesday through Friday. I work my 40 hours, I make my holiday pay on a day I'm scheduled. I get paid the exact same that he does. He was off on the holiday, I worked it.
Well,
We don't get paid double time on a holiday.
when I
get
asked you,
holiday.
the several times we talked about it,
Yes.
because it was brought up, because everybody was upset with Carolyn because she was changing the time card to just exactly that. You get your straight time and your holiday pay. You get double time.
Nobody's upset about
You
that.
said, based on section 2 overtime, that you get double time and your holiday pay. That's paid for 3 times.
No, we've never got paid like that.
No, we-
That's what we changed it to, because that's what you guys were upset about. You called me and you said.
I've
"Get your
I have
holiday pay
never
That's
once
not-
gotten
and you get your
upset
double
because
time."
somebody's not getting triple.
That's
pay.
not true.
We've had multiple conversations
No,
about it.
I was,
That was-
Carol,
That was a
Carolyn.
call-out situation. That wasn't just regular pay.
Okay,
That was a call-out
and
situation.
so
Call out
that's
the
the next
holiday.
section that we have to look
Right.
at. But
But
that's
a whole
that's
different,
how
that's a whole
she's changing
different.
it, because that was what was upsetting to the union.
So I have
but
a
that's
question.
totally different.
But I'm just wondering if there's a lot more to this conversation, and maybe we save it for
Well, yeah,
Thursday.
but since you're on the holidays, that's
Mhm.
call out on a holiday.
Yeah, that's a different article.
Yeah, that's a different article. You were talking before about
Mhm.
just working on a holiday.
Well, this overtime section includes Sundays and holidays, that's why I'm referencing it.
Right, so if I work
See,
overtime
this is a very sensitive section.
on a
Can
Sunday,
can we just put this
Well,
on
it
the
is,
table?
because-
No one gets paid, no one in the city gets paid double time for a holiday. We all get paid holiday pay.
Yeah.
Some people just have to work on that holiday, so they're getting straight time. We all get paid holiday pay. We're all on an equal field. 90% of us are at home on that holiday. Some of us are scheduled to work. We're not earning double time on that holiday because Chris Band just got the same exact pay that I did. Didn't work the holiday and I did. So I'm just
Well,
getting a
I
holiday.
think the bigger thing is that this is what we need to try to work out.
I agree.
Because
That's why we're having
at
a
the end
discussion.
of the day, Carolyn's trying to understand, do I look at call out? Do I look at overtime? Do I look at holiday? Because all 3 sections speak to it in a different way.
Yeah, we can
And
clean that
so-
up. No
Yeah.
problem.
So when we're looking at this, we were looking at holidays, right?
Correct.
And we were looking at call out.
Correct.
And you guys are looking at overtime. And so we're not.
Wait, I'm backing the bus way up
could you
to
just skip
no
away?
one gets,
Mhm.
no one in the city gets paid double time on a holiday unless it's an unscheduled Sunday. That is the only scenario across the entire city. If somebody is called in on
We modified those people's,
I'm gonna
Schedules.
disagree with you, Ryan.
What?
Under working on holidays, section C. Other employees
okay,
who are
sorry,
not,
what page?
page 17.
So in other words, we're jumping way far ahead.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And that's
but they
confusing.
all like,
It's okay,
Because they all
we'll
reference
be
each
on
other.
this one for a while.
Yeah,
Section C.
Because it says who are not regular scheduled off on holidays, so 24 hours, 7 shops, you're pre-scheduled to work whatever the next holiday, June 19th is. You receive your straight hours for your holiday pay, and then for the hours you work on that holiday, you receive 2 times double time the regular rate of pay for all hours worked.
Yeah, but we have scheduled people, so.
Yeah, so that's scheduled
Oh,
person.
yeah, if you're scheduled, you don't.
They get,
If Ryan had to come in for some reason,
Well,
Not just the-
Regardless of what
the
this
other
says,
not how it's.
I do not get compensated any more for
We can-
working the holiday than Chris
Right.
gets for taking it over.
we can talk to Laura
Yeah.
Okay.
ourselves.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm just thinking,
It looks like double time in payroll. I totally get it.
but,
But we're
But
all getting paid the
but
same.
no, you're
that's
getting,
what it says in here. And then it
What?
even says that,
let's just stick to just the holiday one, because we're getting too much stuff. going.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
let's have a private conversation.
well, I'm wondering if we just want to break and come back to this on Thursday when we both have the ability to talk to our groups
Yes.
and
But
kind
I
of
mean-
figure out. I just think each section, each article needs to be better clearly defined so that we're speaking the same language.
And we don't
Because-
need 3 different things to bounce our ideas off of. It just should be
Well, and that-
stated.
And that's exactly it, because like when I called you, because that's what I'm gonna do, right? I'm gonna call you. It's like you guys were looking at the overtime section. Carol and I are trying to focus on the holiday section, because the holiday is what we're talking about. Or the call out section, because the call out is what we're talking about. And so we wouldn't think to look at overtime because we're talking about holiday and call time. So I think we just need to clearly, so that when Carolyn gets those time cards and it's written in such a way, she understands how it applies to the contract and how it doesn't apply to the contract, because we're modifying it based on what our interpretation is. And then what happens in paper,
Contract.
Oh, correct.
Sorry,
And then what happens is that she modifies it, and then you get the phone calls, to say that's not right, this isn't okay. And really, Lisa was doing the same thing, she just wasn't communicating it, I think, as much as Carolyn was.
well,
I like
whether
examples.
that's true, sorry,
I
whether
like
that's true or
I
not,
like examples
Put 'em
too.
in there.
whether that's true or not, that
Mhm.
Lisa was doing the same thing, I don't know. All I know is that when Lisa left, within the first 3 holidays, I had employees come, union and non-union, all coming to me, what's going on? Why is payroll changed? Why has it changed all of a sudden? I didn't know. It wasn't
Where would
affecting me.
non-union?
The only thing that changed between Carolyn and Lisa is if you took overtime on a holiday, you still got your double time. But for some reason, if you took comp time, you only got time and a half. That's the only thing that changed between those two.
Well, and they were looking at it in such a way of saying,
That's not their fault. If you look at our union contract, it's kind of the union contract's fault. So if we need to clarify that, we need to clarify it.
I think that's just all we're asking is like
Yeah.
to make certain that we are
We talked about this,
clear
we
and when
talked about
you've
it.
got multiple, you
So-
know, rules overlaying, that we've got some maybe examples
mhm.
of how those different articles apply in the scenario. And
Yes.
I get it, we can't define every example, but it'll at least give us
Right.
a path to follow when we have
I
an
just want to get
unusual
straight.
example.
If neither Carolyn or Lisa did anything wrong,
Must tell it.
they were
Well-
doing how they
That's
perceive.
normal overtime, that's overtime
Perceive, right.
rate.
Well, and they were even talking about like, okay, so call out outside of your regular hours, like your regular schedule. Is that time and a half or double time, and then you get your holiday pay, but what happens if it's holiday pay, and it technically is triple time?
Call out is
So-
always outside your regular
Because
schedule.
I could be
Well,
true,
because
Here's another
they're
thing.
called out on holidays.
but how's that triple time?
Because if they're working, they're getting double time for their call out,
But
and
again,
it's happening during the
You're
workday
getting
where
paid to
they're
be
otherwise
home.
off.
I was getting paid to be at home.
What I'm saying is that if you're called in at double time,
That's-
during the
There we go,
workday.
double time.
yes, double time, during the workday that you have off as a holiday,
Right.
you are getting paid holiday plus double time.
No,
On
you get double
payroll,
time,
that looks like triple time.
But it's.
But it's not.
Not.
That's how,
I'm only getting paid double time because I'm coming in to work now on a holiday.
right, but see,
But I'm getting
we
paid
view
whether I'm at
double,
home or
like
not,
our
right?
description of double time is holiday pay and straight time, which differs from
Right.
your guys' ideal of what double time is. So that's what I'm saying, is that the city's double time, straight time holiday, you get paid twice your regular rate of pay. You guys are saying, well, I want twice my regular rate of pay plus my holiday.
No.
So during that
No, nobody's
time,
saying that.
that's that's what was upsetting to people, and that's how we had to change
Yeah,
it.
because you got, yeah, because whether you're at home on the 4th of July with your family,
Mhm.
I was at home with 4th of July with my family, we're both getting paid right then, right? Now I'm getting called into work, so I'm getting basically double time to get called into work,
Mhm.
not triple time.
I think that you can see it one way, I'm saying from the city's description of double time. It is straight time and holiday pay. That equals 2 times your regular rate of pay. And you're looking, and that's why we need to define that
Right.
call out, is that a premium pay? Where you're getting that time and a half and it doesn't really matter holiday pay or hours worked? That's, I think, why we need to work through these, because your guys' perception of how you read this contract and the
Right.
city's perception of what double time is, 2 different things.
How do you have, on the city's perspective on that is, what is the rate to calculate that holiday pay that you just
It's
referenced?
your standard workday at your regular rate of pay.
Okay,
So
so
on my time
not,
card,
not the 8 hours holiday pay for that holiday, but then you're called in, that rate would be the same rate you normally work.
Be like your straight time, we were looking at like you're called out, right? So is that time and a half? But then
I guess it's that-
specifically,
Okay,
but then
So
specifically in
the-
overtime, it says it's double time.
The
So
standard
it's
practice for when you're working on a holiday to achieve your overtime or your double pay is you put so you get your holiday pay regardless of the number of hours you work that day. So if your standard schedule's a 10-hour day, you get
Mhm.
10 hours of holiday pay.
yes,
Now, let's say you've had to work 8 hours of those days. So
okay,
then you put those 8 hours into your regular rate of pay. So you have your 10 hours of holiday pay,
okay.
your 8 hours of regular pay. So what that ends up equating to is 8 hours of double time for the hours actually worked. And then the 2 additional hours of holiday.
The way I read the contract is the only
But if you
time,
wanna make it simpler, if you.
I was just
you're
like,
scheduled for
pay
10
25 hours.
and you work
that-
those 10 hours as well.
And my pay is 25. I got paid for my 10 hours at $25, and then for the hours I actually worked, I'm still getting paid those hours at $25.
And that equals double
Yeah.
time.
Okay, I think that's where our misconfusion
I think
is.
sometimes,
we
and
want
I do, I
holiday to
think
be
sometimes
separate
employees
and
think
the-
that they can use that double time pay code anytime they're working on a holiday, because there are some holidays that you get that triple time in your contract. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
Christmas Day and
Christmas and
Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so that's what I'm
Right.
saying, there is a double code to create that triple time pay. So I think sometimes what's happening is a union is saying, I need to use that double code because I'm getting double pay for my holiday, but they're also then using their regular rate, they're using that regular rate of pay, which is creating the triple time.
Maybe also if we just transition away from using the phrase double time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
And
It's just
based off
holiday
of
pay.
The rate.
I
of
think we're all
pay.
saying the same thing, like
Yeah.
we all understand what the
If you just say,
calculated
like,
pay is supposed to be, it's just the mechanism to how you get to the calculated pay is being confused by different people.
Right.
we do have, and this, I was gonna talk to Nikki about this. Hold on, because I knew this was gonna come up, but, so we have two scenarios where, and I heard it in the council, meeting, all right? I'm not picking on you, you're getting a point across, but there are instances where we have employees earning triple time. Right in our contract, I can't find it right now, it says at no time will the city pay triple time.
And that says above.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only two scenarios with triple time, again, if we want to get rid of the double time, then that term no longer exists. But the only scenario that would happen would be Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day would only happen at the water plant, and on those 2 days, we do not staff an employee. I have never worked on a Christmas or a Thanksgiving Day, neither has Chris, unless
Could
somebody's called out.
If they get streets, so that's a
They can
call
get
out.
called out, that's different, that's
Yeah.
call out.
Yeah,
So in no situation in my 11 and a half years has there ever been a situation where somebody might receive that triple?
So they get holiday, do they get time and a half for called out on a Christmas Day?
That to be determined.
Because that's not
they
what
get
this
double
said.
time on,
No.
they should get double time.
This says that they get triple time. Because
Triple
it
time,
says,
how's it triple time?
because it says in that sentence that you will only earn triple time as stated above. And it's talking about when you work on a Christmas and a Thanksgiving. So that's what I'm saying, is the definition just isn't there. And I think we need to define, like Jennifer said, is it 2 times your regular rate of pay, 3 times your regular rate of pay? What is that? Because it means different things to you versus how we interpret it. So I think if we have to like scratch stuff out on the board or whatever we have to do, I think we just need to, number one, I mean, the direction from the council was to create holidays similar to how other employee groups are doing it. So I'm also trying to keep that in mind. But you guys, I think, are a little bit unique in that you have those call outs on holidays, and I think that's when it's becoming confusing the most. Is because also payroll's looking at it as like, okay, if I work, 6:30 to 5, and that's my holiday, but then I come in at 2 AM, is it double time still, or is it time and a half, or is it only during that holiday? So it's like, I think
The
we just-
holidays, 24 hours a day, just so we get that.
but that's not defined in here because holiday
It's
is
defined
defined,
in common knowledge,
holiday is defined.
and so is a Sunday.
Holiday in your contract is defined as a standard workday. So that's what I'm saying, is that I think we just need to clarify so that we all understand when we say this, this is what this means.
Is our standard workday and our regular work hours the same thing? Because our standard workday is 12:01 AM until 11:59 AM on any given day, stated in the contract, and there's no policy.
Well, you're paid the holiday, I'm feeling like I'm having to defend this thing that all I want really is to be clarified.
No. These are simple questions that we've all asked ourselves. Because our regular time of work, we all know that is established. Let's just call it 8 to 5.
Mhm,
Anything outside of 8 to 5 would be considered call out, would be considered overtime.
mhm.
Okay, but we are expected to be schedulable and available from 12:01 until 11:59 on any given day. So on our side of the table, we say, well, Christmas doesn't end at 3:30 when we go home on last Wednesday.
Mhm.
It's Christmas Day until midnight. I mean, which I don't know if I'd argue that, but it's just Christmas Day. And if you're on call out and you get called out, it's an interruption of your holiday. Again, nobody's scheduled to work that. But you guys be called out, we could potentially be called out, wastewater could be. Those are the only people it even pertains to. Everybody else is just off on those holidays, and that's fine. But
And I get the 24-hour period. All I'm saying is then let's define that. Because the only definition of a holiday in here is pay for your standard workday.
as
And
you were
your-
scheduled,
And your standard workday is that 10 hours a day.
So
So-
that's in Article 11, Section 1, standard work period. Standard work day for employees shall be 8 or 10 hours, and the standard work period shall be 40 hours to be worked within 7 consecutive days. I don't know if that's, I'm just looking at a version, just to the point of
Yes.
clarity. So if your contract says that your standard work day is a particular time and your standard work period is a particular time, we are required to go off of what your contract says, not what you wish it said, which is why we're asking you,
But it's just,
how would you like us to change this to work in
oh, well, we didn't
practice?
understand necessarily the question, just something we needed to work through.
Well,
But
I mean-
you found it for me, and I appreciate that. So 40-hour work week within 7 consecutive days beginning at 12 AM on Saturday and ending at night on Friday. That's your work, that's your work week.
That's your work period.
Yeah.
Your work day is 8 or 10 hours.
yeah.
So if your
workday
holiday is
period.
based on your standard
But it's
work day,
Wednesday is a 24-hour period.
but no, a 24-hour, there's nothing in here about a 24-hour period. There's
Well-
a work period, which is 8 or 10 hours, and the work period is 40 hours over 7 consecutive days.
We just need to
There's no
define Sunday and
standard
holiday
work
as being
day.
24 hours.
Well, yeah, because there's just nothing in here that says, like, one would say, yes, Christmas is all day long. But that's not what your contract says. Your contract defines holiday as your standard workday. And so when you're called out at 2 AM or 9 PM or something like that, it's
After hours.
outside of that holiday standard workday. So it's like, are we gonna say that?
Call-outs are always paid at a certain time anyway.
Did
But
she
is it
finish
paid
what
up?
she's stating though? Because you keep interrupting her and she's not able to finish what she's saying and then you ask a different question. So can we allow her to finish what she's saying before you
Yeah.
interrupt?
I mean, I think the idea is that we're just trying to standardize this so it makes sense to you guys and to us. Because you guys say, and I've heard you guys say it too, when I called you, Ryan, it's like, holiday's 24 hours. Well, where in here does it say you get paid double time for a 24-hour period? It just says holidays are defined as for your standard workday. So when it says you get overtime for holidays at double time, it just needs to be defined, if that's what it is. If that's how you're seeing it, that's not how it's reading. And so when we're looking at when we're looking at time card, we're trying to interpret, because we don't know, what does this mean in correlation to this section on holidays? And then it's like, oh wait, we're referring to overtime. Oh wait, we're referring to call out time. We just need some consistency on, if it's a holiday and you're called out, the holiday is considered a 24-hour period in this relation, right? And during that relation, this is when you will receive double time. Your standard holiday workday will be the 10 hours. And maybe we don't even say standard workday. We just say you get 10 hours for holiday pay. And that's completed separate. But it's like you're saying 24-hour periods, you're saying these things that you don't get triple time, but your own contract says those things. And then we're trying to adjust it based on what it said. Your employees are getting upset with us. We're modifying it to what you're saying just to get to this room so that we don't upset the situation because we all read it different. So I don't want you guys to feel like it's being attacked. It's just, it's not clear. And it's clear to you, but it's not clear to us.
No, and it's not clear to,
Would it be easier just to add a section call out pay on holidays?
And we did. We added,
Okay, maybe I'm not there yet.
we added a section,
Oh, working on holidays?
Page 17 and B.
Oh, okay.
if an employee is called out to work on a city recognized holiday, they shall receive call out pay at 1.5 times, and we could say, their hourly rate in addition to the holiday pay for their standard workday. So you're getting call out at time and a half, and you're getting your holiday pay for that 10 hours a day. This means that if the call out occurs during the employee's normally scheduled work hours, they will receive both call out pay at time and a half, the regular rate, and then straight time for their holiday pay. If it occurs outside of the employee's typical working hours, standard call out provisions will apply as outlined in Article 11, Section 3. So it's just clarifying even more that that call out is just a separate 1.5 pay. And that it's just clarifying that you get your holiday at 10 hours. Doesn't matter what your schedule is, you get the holiday for 10 hours. Call out is viewed as separate, just the 1.5 times. So
How would that work? Like, so say the water, because I know you guys work 24/7 sometimes, so like, it says their typical working hours, but say because somebody's unavailable or something and couldn't answer, but they're on the day shift or night shift, and it's the vice versa shift that they're calling to cover. That's not their typical day that they were scheduled, so how would that work? Does that
like in
make
reference
sense?
to holiday,
Yeah,
In other words, this 4th of July, I will be working night shift, so 2 to 1 of them. Approximately, whatever. That's outside my normal work time, but not in the summer when we're working shift. There's that 24-hour period we talk about, that's the 4th of July. I'm working well beyond the normal work hours.
Do you, in that scenario, are you working like a 4-10 schedule?
We're 10.
Yeah,
It doesn't
so
always
you get
work
your-
out too.
You would get your 10 hours of holiday pay, right? And then you get any hours you work.
That's correct,
So,
which
I
is
don't know.
commonly called double time, and we don't want
Yeah.
to call it double
Right,
time.
so you would
It's just
get,
holiday pay.
you would receive your 10 hours of holiday pay, because
Right.
everyone gets holiday pay up to what their regular scheduled shifts are. So like I work 8 hours, so I get 8 hours of holiday pay.
Right.
So in your scenario, the holiday lands on a day you're working, you get your 10 hours of holiday pay, and then how many hours would you have worked that day? Will you have worked that day, 10?
10-hour shift.
And then you'd get 10 hours of regular pay.
Right.
So you would get
I would
10
get-
hours
I would get paid for
at your
50
regular,
hours.
your holiday.
I would get paid for 50
equal-
hours.
I
Right.
would get paid for 50 hours if it's a 10-hour
Let's-
holiday.
yeah.
Because I'm
10-hour
working a
shift.
40-hour week or 10 days, and I get paid
An
another
additional
10
10
hours
hours
for
on one of
holiday.
those days.
Oh, so you're looking at the whole week, huh?
yeah.
Look at the whole week.
I
Now,
guess my
now,
question
now,
was-
Chris also gets paid 50 hours that week, because he happens to work a Monday through Thursday, and then gets his holiday pay on his day off. So we get paid the exact same amount of money, I work the holiday. That's another discussion, but I'm just saying, that's a reality out
Yeah.
there for all of us who.
I think though,
but no.
I understand what
Because your
Ryan's
holiday count
saying.
towards, like currently, in this contract, holiday counts towards hours worked for overtime. So if you worked 4 days and took a 5th day as a holiday, you'd have 10 hours of overtime.
No.
No.
No. Chris just got his 40 hours of regular time. Friday, he doesn't show up for work. On his check, he has 10 hours for 4th of July. The paid holiday. Just like you stayed home on 4th of July and you got paid 8 hours.
I could be here on 4th of July, Ryan, did you know?
I'm not saying you would, maybe not, but guess what? I will be
If
here on
you do,
4th
I
of
get
July,
the props.
taking the exact same rate of pay that
Well,
Chris is
well,
going to
I
make.
I don't know, like, I don't know if your question's on the current contract or what we're talking about for the next contract, right?
Right.
But like, for other labor groups, when the holiday falls on a day you're scheduled off anyways, the employee has the option to take a different day as a holiday.
Yeah.
Correct.
But they don't,
We don't always have that.
Yeah,
That
we're
option.
working shifts.
Yeah,
We don't,
it's-
can't do that.
yeah.
With the water plant, you don't really have that option because we need,
I guess my question in this scenario versus the language that you guys proposed is Ryan's working that night shift on 4th of July, say something happens, emergency, he needs help, he calls Chris, who's on the day shift. Well, that's outside his normal shift, so what rate would that call out be paid at? Would that be a holiday or
The
regular?
call-out pay, the call-out pay.
you call it.
All right, well, let's back that up. Chris has already worked his 40. It's the holiday. He's getting paid for a holiday on Friday, he's not working.
But are you scheduled
I
to
think-
work based on your shift schedule? You're scheduled to work.
We know who's working the holiday.
Yeah, this is,
But that's not my question. You're scheduled to work on that holiday.
Yeah, I
Maybe
get
our
my
brain
breakers and I need to like scratch it out on paper.
too, so.
Not
All right.
always. Like, I know I'm
I'm
working.
gonna interrupt.
I know I'm working.
Just remember you guys
So to me,
do
it's-
hang out outside.
I'm getting my
I
holiday
can't
pay.
let
It's not, that's not the rub. The rub is if Chris has
Yeah,
to
if
come
you
in
can
on
hear,
his
there's no
paid
sound.
holiday day
Yeah.
off, what rate of pay is he paid at? Because it's now overtime on a holiday.
This is why examples.
But-
are really-
Yeah, this
But
is,
there's
Maybe
no,
we can get examples.
but you gotta remember, wrap our heads
Put
around it.
examples in here.
There's no way to make every employee fair because some employee at some point is gonna have to work on a holiday. They're gonna get a different rate of pay than that other employee that is coming in outside of what they are scheduled for that particular day. And so
we've
that,
advocated for that argument the whole time.
but what you're arguing is if you're scheduled to work that day, because you know what your schedule's gonna be, and he is not, and that's his normal day off, it's not fair that you're gonna get paid less than him because he's coming in on his day off. That is not what you're advocating
No,
for
no,
right
we're,
now.
we're getting paid the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting paid the same, but you were scheduled for that day, whether that's what your normal schedule is, but you said you already know you're gonna be scheduled to work that day. So that sounds like a scheduled day, where it's for him, it's not a scheduled day, and he wasn't planning to work on that day, but now he's being called in. So that's why he's getting a call-out pay and you're not. And that's why
But
you're
no,
getting your regular rate of
totally
pay
right. That was not my
plus-
argument at all.
plus a holiday pay at your regular rate of pay. He's getting holiday pay at his regular rate of pay, plus his call-out pay,
Right.
which
Our only,
may
our
or may
only,
not be more than what you ultimately make on that day, because his call-out pay is at a premium for the time that he's worked, plus he gets the 2-hour minimum. But that's what happens when you have shift work. You have shift people
Nobody's
who work
arguing.
on weekends, you have people that work on holidays, you have call-outs at, I mean, I've done all those shifts myself, I've been in the military, I'm an exempt employee now, so I can work 70 hours a week and not get a cent more than I get paid any other week. So, you know, there's fairness to the employee group, and there's figuring out how this stuff is gonna get paid. All we're concerned at this point is defining how do we pay these? The fairness amongst the employee groups, never gonna happen, because you've got parks, you've got wastewater, you've got, water, you've got all these different employee groups, and each one's gonna have separate scenarios. And you're advocating for something that's more particular to your working group, but it might not apply to Morgan, and it might not apply to Pat. But we have to make it fair across all the working groups, so we're just trying to figure out if someone is scheduled for a standard work week, however that is defined, then they get paid X. If they're scheduled, if they're get called in for overtime, or if they have to work overtime, they get paid Y, they get paid Y. If they're called for a call out, they get paid Z. If it's a holiday, it's A. It doesn't matter, other than defining the particular periods, what's a standard workday? What's a holiday? What is a call out? What is overtime? All, how it works out individually, that is beyond the scope of this contract. We really just want to figure out, what is a holiday? Okay, let's redefine a holiday so that it's a 24-hour period. That is a problem that has been identified. What is overtime? There's direction from the council on reclassifying what qualifies as overtime. There's a question about what is a call out? When does call out apply and how do we pay that? That is what we're trying to figure out. Not all these little nuanced situations of, if I have to work a holiday, but someone else doesn't have to work a holiday and they get called in, that's for you guys to work out.
I was just using it. as an
Can we
example.
just-
Nobody here,
can we just
everything
end
you
right
talked
now,
about is
please?
things we're at.
I mean, really, we're
Yeah.
getting,
But I think that Laura understands what some of those issues are.
I believe so. It's,
Do you guys
let's
just wanna adjourn
yes,
here?
let's do, we can go on for.
Can I make one statement?
sure.
It was brought up in the first deal and stuff. Basically, it's contract. At the end of it is null and void. We need to obviously restructure
Mhm.
this section. We both need to sit down and write out what we believe, interpretation or whatever, or what we think the groups want. Then bring it back to the table.
Yep.
To me, that's what I hear everybody saying is, this is too confusing.
Mhm.
It needs to be broke down into the groups and stated
And
in
Per
common
department.
language.
we agree on
Well, no,
clarification.
no.
All right.
Overtime,
Oh, okay.
holiday, that stuff. Because we're trying to compare the way that it's been done and what it says here.
Mhm.
We need it to what we want.
So like start fresh.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Would that be clearer for everybody maybe?
Well,
Probably
That's
Some
the
new
only way I can see it.
definitions think, new definitions, I think.
So we meet the day after tomorrow, doesn't give us a lot of time. So do we wanna
Maybe
kind of,
we
But look
don't
towards the
talk about
current
it
personnel
day
policy.
after tomorrow.
That says something.
Is that what you
what'd you
said?
say, Jennifer? I'm
I
sorry.
said, look towards the current personnel policy. How are those holidays and overtime and stuff working? And how would you propose it to be different based on your work group?
Well, and really, like, this is important to me too, because we do have non-reps who work alongside your technicians who are in the call-out situation, they're working on a holiday too. And currently, it's looked at, it's just two different things. And so we want it to be fair amongst those people doing the same rotation.
With that being said, I think that those people that are supervisors are already getting compensated in another way.
For their supervisory work.
Right.
But they're,
Part of that is having to,
but they're advocating for their employees by putting themselves into the
Right.
rotation.
I think it seemed to adjourn because we can talk all day.
Well, let me just get this last point out. They're in the rotation of call out in the benefit of their employees so that their employees are not every single week. And so if they're gonna be in the call out and it's the same situation and it's the same holiday, it just seems like it shouldn't be treated in two different ways, is all I'm trying to say. So we can end it at that and we'll just
Perfect.
try to have as much as we can on Thursday. It doesn't give us a lot of time to prepare, but if you feel like this is a big discussion point, maybe we move on to the rest and we come back to this to give us
So
more
try to get
time.
through this and then come back. to a
Yeah.
Sticking point.
Cause we only made it to page, like, what, 13 or?
Like if we know that this is gonna need a little bit more time and a little bit more, then we just kind of jump forward a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you guys, that'll also like, we can kind of, you guys were gonna talk about Article 9. We can kind of maybe put that to give you guys a little time to come over what you want to do there.
I'll see if I can do.
Okay, are we adjourned?
Yes.
Okay.
You might be standing around.
Okay, sorry, recap. Are
Oh.
we meeting Thursday to go over the rest of the changes?
Well, that's my thinking.
Oh, okay.
But Chris is over there.
Oh, thank you, Tim.
Here.
And